Hey there. Okay, so yeah, the LCD for that would be 2x. Let's see what I get when I do it. So we multiply both sides by 2x. So for here, the x's would cancel. And that would leave me 2 times 5 makes 10 right there. And then this would be 2x over 2x, that would cancel. That might be the spot. That would leave a negative 1 up there, because right, if I have 2x over 2x, it all does cancel, but something divided by itself with a negative would be a negative 1. And then right here, we'll go 2x times that negative 2, so that's going to give us a negative 4x right there. And then I'll pop this 1 over to this side, so that would give us an 11 equals negative 4x. Divide the negative 4, so we should get negative 11 fourths for x. We'll just pop over here, make sure. Yep, that's what I got. So you're missing the 4. I wonder if you canceled the 2's on accident. That might have been it as well. But anyhow, there's the steps for number 4. And then let's take a peek at, I think it was number 11. So we're doing that, and that makes that. Okay, cool. Let me write that one out. So 3 over x plus 2. And then that's going to be added to g of x, so that's 3 over x minus 2. And then that's supposed to equal 5/8. So for that one, there's nothing in common in any of those denominators, so the only thing I can do is multiply that by 8 times x plus 2 times x minus 2. So I'm going to write that all out on this side. And I think I actually left myself room, so I'll write it all out on this side as well. 8 x plus 2 x minus 2. And that should clear all those denominators. So for this first one, the x plus 2's would cancel. And I have 3 times that 8, so I'm going to write that as a 24, and then the x minus 2 is going to survive, because that would be canceled with just that. And then the same thing here, we'll go 3 times the 8 would give us a 24 in front, and then the x minus 2's would cancel if we kind of pictured all of that sitting right up there. And x minus 2, so then x plus 2 survives. And on this side, we knock out those 8's, but then all the rest of that's still there. So we'd have 5. And just to save myself a little bit of writing, I'm going to FOIL this as I go, because writing in Zoom sucks. So this would be x squared and then minus 4. And then we'll go ahead and do a little distribute and collect and get everything over to one side and kind of see where to go from there. So we got 24x times negative 48, or sorry, minus 48, plus 24x, and then plus 48. Cool, those will drop out. And then 5 times x squared, and then 5 times negative 4, so make it negative 20 over there. So those are gone, and now I'd have 24, oops, no, let's combine those. Okay, 48x equals 5x squared minus 20. Oh, this one's going to suck a little bit. We'll bring this over, because since this is squared, that means I want to get it to 0 equals the quadratic, and then I can either factor or use the quadratic formula, whichever seems like the better plan. And it looks like this one should factor from the answer, so which makes sense. These ones tend not to have that terrible of answers. You could also use the quadratic formula if that seems easier. That would also absolutely work. That might actually seem easier to you. Yeah, I'll remind you that back in, I think it was 5.2, we did quadratic formula, and you could plug this in right now, and it would be a bit of calculator work, but it would absolutely get you to these same 2 answers that I'm going to get by factoring. So if you don't love the factoring I'm about to do, that would be your alternative. So this is the kind where it doesn't lead with a 1, and so we have a couple of different ways we can factor that. We could set up 5x and x, and then figure out 2 numbers that multiply to be 20. Let me write that out, and I'll erase it in a second, just because this is the way I don't prefer to do it. For numbers that multiply to be 20, I would have 1 and 20 2 and 10, and 4 and 5, and it's negative, so one's positive and one's negative. And I could just plug numbers in here of those pairs until I get a cross term that comes up to negative 48. That's kind of my least favorite way to factor. If you're going to do that, at that point, I'd say just shove it in the quadratic formula and do it that way. Kind of feeling tempted to do that, but let me go ahead and show the factoring just to do it. I prefer factoring by what's called magic method. You can also do grouping. Maybe I'll do grouping because that one's maybe a little more straightforward for most people. So 5 times negative 20 anyhow, we get negative 100. And then we're looking for two numbers that multiply to be negative 100 and add to be negative 48. And so that would be negative 50 and positive 2, which to me seems easier than plugging numbers randomly into the parentheses until you get the one that works. And so then I'm going to rewrite this as 4 terms. So 5x squared, I'm going to put the 50 first. Doesn't matter which way I wrote it, but we get the same answer either way. And then 2x and then minus 20. You might remember this from 93 last quarter. We did this there in the factoring chapter. I could take out a 5x from those first two. That's going to leave an x minus 10. I could take a 2 from those second two. X minus 10. Factor the x minus 10 out front. Leaves behind 5x plus 2. And then from here we would get x equals 10. And from this one we would get 5x plus 2 equals 0. Bring the 2 over. 5x equals negative 2 and x equals negative 2/5. So that would be one way to factor that. The other one, just to kind of remind you in case, because I think last quarter in the 93 class I gave you a couple of options as to how to do it. So that was one method, and this was the other, where you do 5x and 5x. You do the same thing where you find the two numbers that multiply to be a times c, and then add to be that middle. And then you toss them in there with the extra 5x. And then since there's an extra 5, you just divide that out. And so then we'd end up with the 5, we cancel that 5 and go into that one minus 10 and 5x plus 2. So either one of those factoring methods work. And then again, if you're like, I am never going to remember that in a million years, go ahead and chunk that into the quadratic formula. And to me, that's more work that I wouldn't prefer to do if it were me. But it will absolutely get you the exact same 10 and negative 2/5 that I got by factoring. So there's a few different ways to go on that. That one's pretty hard. The fact it's remembering how to deal with that factoring at the last step. So hopefully that cleared it up.